Right. Good morning, almost afternoon, everyone. I know we're still getting everyone logged in, but we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Emily Young with NC Tech, and we're so glad to have you join us for today's workshop presented by JLL Raleigh on workplace reimagination. Just a couple housekeeping items here. If you have any technical difficulties, you can submit chat directly to me, and our presenters will let you know how they'll handle any questions from attendees who are in listen-only mode. So I will go ahead and turn it over right now to Ryan Lawrence with JLL.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. We got a lot to fill in an hour, so we'll go ahead and jump into it. Again, thanks, Emily. I'm Ryan Lawrence. We're going to spend a few minutes this afternoon, giving you a brief overview of who we are and why we're here. The majority of the webinar is going to be spent showcasing our really cool technology platform that can help you navigate workplace reimagination. The last 15 minutes will be reserved for Q&A, so please direct any questions to the Q&A box. First and foremost, JLL, we're very proud to have partnered with NC Tech over the last decade, and really happy to call them a client as well. As an organization, we aim to add value to our partners and clients around the triangle by leveraging their real estate as a driver to achieve their business goals. Joining me on the call today is Kimmery Ankenbrand, who leads our Raleigh-Durham office, and Casey McCullough, who is our digital advisor and our technology expert. Quick snapshot of JLL. We're a large publicly traded commercial real estate company. We have offices globally. Locally, our Carolinas team is made up of 3 offices covering North and South Carolina, and we have services addressing all aspects of commercial real estate. We're a large company, again, with a lot of services that we offer to our clients. On the phone today, you have our team that specializes in working with tenants or users of real estate. Whether you're looking to find a new office, find a larger one to grow, or just contemplating relocation strategies, that's kind of what this team does on the phone here. And most recently, JLL, we've been on a technology journey over the last several years. And I'm going to pass the torch to Kimmery, who's going to touch on that journey, how it started, and where we're all headed.
Great. Thanks, Ryan, for that introduction. And thanks, everyone in the audience, for joining us today. Like Ryan said, we're actually going to take a step back about 4 years to kind of give you a better glimpse of how we got to where we are today. So back in 2016, really to that date, JLL and the industry as a whole was very successfully serving commercial users, investors, and clients around the globe. But the reality was the business was pretty antiquated and unsophisticated. So thanks to some very innovative and forward-thinking leadership at JLL, who started asking, how can we evolve and future-proof the business? We set a lofty goal to revolutionize and transform the commercial real estate industry via technology. And I will admit, all of us on the phone thought our leadership was a little crazy back then because our core business was real estate. But I think in sitting here in 2020, we're all glad we had some leaders who are kind of pushing that mission and vision. So fast forward to 2017, JLL did something that really no other real estate firm in the world had done. We launched a $100 million strategic global venture fund called the Spark Funds. And what this was and is today is the first proprietary prop tech investment vehicle set up by a real estate firm with 3 very simple goals. The first one is to invest in prop tech. Second is to grow startups. And third is to deliver innovation. We've made a number of investments and have a number of assets under management today. And it continues to kind of fuel the pipeline of innovation for our company. So then we moved to 2018, and alongside our core technology journey is when we really started to see a shift in the commercial real estate business model, really driven by decision makers who were wanting a more consultative expertise and forward-thinking insights on how could they make their real estate work harder for them. So what we really saw was a movement from a very reactive defensive strategy to a more reactive consultative approach, and really an approach that is a main driver of our business mindset and how we service our clients today. Then just last year in 2019, JLL formally organized a new division of the firm called JLL Technologies, really taking the past 3 years of work and making it more organized so we could take all the tech-related activities, both internal and external with the business, under one umbrella, allowing us to better execute on that goal from 2016, bringing all things tech-related into our senior strategic positions and initiatives within the firm. 2020, here we all are, 4 years later for us, alongside our technology journey, and hundreds of millions of dollars that we have invested, all got put to the test when the pandemic hit. Today, we're integrating this technology experience that we're going to show you here later this afternoon, as well as most recently, the conversation around reimagining the future of work as a result of the current ever-changing fluid environment that we're all facing. I think a takeaway here is JLL's technology, as well as I'm sure all of y'all's businesses, has transformed the way our business operates today in ways we could never imagined. But what we found as a byproduct of this technology transformation has been our overall approach to the business as a whole, which means leading with people first and real estate second. So next, we're going to take a little deeper dive before we get into the technology process and look at the why, the what, and the how around this reimagination concept. So we're going to start with the why. Obviously, regardless of what size company we all are at, whether it's public or private, or it's a startup, or it's a Fortune 500 company, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the world, and none of us know kind of where that pendulum is going to land. But the one thing that we do know today, and we're fairly confident will ring true in the next 2, 3, 5 years down the line, is the majority of the workforce is going to want a hybrid model. And so what does that mean? You can see the stat there below. Early data that JLL has pulled, as well as some non-commercial real estate firms like Gardner and Gallup, have all kind of landed on around 70 to 80% of the workforce wants to return to the office 2 to 3 days a week. So really this sets the tone for what we're solving for and why we need to start reimagining the future of work. For companies to be successful moving forward, they're going to have to find a way to have the right mix between people working at home or remote and in the office. So then we kind of look at two aspects of what needs to be reimagined. First, let's look at what the purpose of the office really means, both for employees and employers. What we found is this really is a conversation that nobody's been having in the past, meaning taking a really deep dive as far as what does that purpose of that office serve for a particular business. In the past, it's been how many offices, workstations, and conference rooms do we need? And now that's really shifted to what's the right allocation of space, and the main buckets of collaboration space, individual space, shared amenities, areas where we can socialize, but also learn in more heads down space. And what we found is it's not a one size fits all approach. It's going to be specific for everyone's company and business. So what we're doing here is really encouraging companies to first define what that function and purpose of your real estate should be before we get into the more bricks and mortar of a real estate process. Second, we take into consideration a number of different factors. What you'll see here on the left is really the current conversation, which is we're going to have an increase of people working remote or working from home, and we have a decrease in demand for office space. Now, the reality is we will have some companies coming out of COVID that need to reduce their footprint, but others that might need to consolidate or even make more room for space if they had been operating in a very dense plan where you can't social distance appropriately. But regardless of kind of what your strategy is, we found at least 12 different considerations that need to be put on the table to really yield a fruitful solution. So a few here that I'm going to highlight is one, a lot of people are talking about talent strategy. How are you going to onboard and develop new talent virtually? A lot has been talked about the human experience. Again, regardless of what industry you're in, it's really coming into the employee experience and really humanizing that process. Technology is a big conversation. That's what we're here to talk about today. But the reality is companies are going to have to make a large investment in technology moving forward to accommodate a hybrid model of people working in the office and working remote. And other things like your long-term business sustainability plan, et cetera. All of those factors really need to be put on the table in order for a company to strategically come up with their reimagined future state. So hopefully most of y'all are nodding your head, and these are conversations that you find your leadership having today. But a lot of people are saying, how do you start that process? How do you start that conversation? So today we're going to give you a small glimpse into a more robust and innovative process that we're now taking our clients through. And we essentially break it into 4 main buckets that Casey's going to highlight. And the first is being the people. So we look at how you invest in certain factors like natural light, enhanced HVAC system, design, amenities, and how that really yields a serious return for the business. Secondly, we look at needs. So we look at custom insights into the amount of space needed to accommodate a specific business. Again, depending on your industry, size of company, public or private, it's 100% customizable. Then we take you to the market, and we're able to virtually do a 3D tour of whatever market you're in, whether that's in Raleigh, New York, Chicago, or London, and take a deeper dive into the overall market dynamics as well as availability. And finally, that's when we get to the space, and we're able to do some mock-up floor plan options for future space and projections to evaluate different workplace strategy approaches. So this entire process is really wrapped up into a very efficient and transparent process. That's what we kept hearing from our clients. Again, they wanted it quicker and they wanted more transparency. And ultimately, with the goal of saving time and money and reducing risk. And what we're finding in 2020 is enhancing the virtual collaboration amongst shareholders and decision makers. So before I hand things over to Casey, I am going to set the table for the case study that we're going to walk you all through live today. We had the fortunate opportunity. Our local Raleigh-Durham office about 18 months ago went through this entire process, obviously pre-COVID. And while this is our day job, we got to be in the position of being the actual client while we were outgrowing our old, outdated, and inefficient office with an expiring lease of early 2020. You can see here some of our before pictures. I know a lot of people like the HGTV concept of before and after. So kind of let this sink in to your kind of lens right now, and we'll show you the after pictures at the end. But essentially what we were in the middle of navigating was we made a number of strategic hires in 2019 to further grow our local team here, as well as the firm acquired the #1 real estate capital markets firm in the world, HFF. So our headcount locally grew from about 25 to 45 people overnight. So we had to quickly pivot our space design to include not just workspace for our new teammates, but we had to quickly determine how we were going to use the office space to merge the culture of the two organizations. I would say, I think Casey and Ryan would agree, the thought process and the intention that went into it when we opened our office the end of January and then had to shut it down is indicative to being Raleigh-Durham JLL office is one of the most successful offices to re-enter since kind of the COVID pandemic hit. So a lot of lessons learned. Look forward to sharing them with you today. And with that, I'm going to turn the ball over to Casey.
Thank you, Kimmery, and I'm excited to walk through our process and talk a little bit about our Raleigh office today. So before I jump in, I just want to reiterate what Kimmery mentioned. We really took the traditional real estate process and divided it into 4 buckets. So you have your people, your need, the market, and then your space. So I'm going to jump in here and start to talk a little bit about our people for our JLL Raleigh office. You'll see on my screen here, I have a number of factors of productive workplaces. And so as our team thought about the move and design of our space, we really wanted to leverage some of the real estate factors that can help to make a team more productive and also help to recruit and retain top talent. And all of these factors here are going to correlate to cost savings for your business. So as I said, I have a number of these up on the screen, and I won't go through all of them, but I do want to highlight a few that we think about when we relocated our office and that we hear a lot from our clients. So the first one being lighting and daylight. Access to good lighting and daylight can really increase the productivity of your team. We see even up to 18% increase in productivity. Indoor air quality and ventilation. This is something that we talk about a lot in the COVID era. It can really help to decrease absenteeism amongst your team and lead to improved cognitive results. Interior layout and active design. So workplace design for a diversity of different types of working spaces is so important. It can help decrease employee turnover by up to 28%. And then look and feel of the space. 41% of job seekers base their decision on the physical workspace. So it's so important as you think about recruiting and retaining talent. And I do want to mention that these studies have been done over a number of years. And, we can't just get this data from one single data point. There's a lot of years of research that are backing these up. So now I will jump in and show how that really played a part in our approach. So first I'll put in our previous square footage in our JLL office and then add in a few real estate metrics, such as what we were paying in utilities and rent per square foot. Like Kimmery mentioned, our headcount jumped up to 45 people overnight. So we'll plug that in here and then just use some national averages for salary, benefits, attrition, and sick days. And now we can calculate what our total occupancy costs are, which you'll see here in the top right part of my screen. And you'll see that 95% of our total occupancy costs are related to human capital. So using some of those factors on the next screen, we wanted to think through how could we see some cost savings and increase the productivity of our team. By having access to good lighting and daylight, let's say we could increase productivity by just 2%. We'll see the total overall savings over here on the left, as well as the savings per square foot. By moving into a building with better ventilation and HVAC, let's say we could reduce sick days by just one less sick day per year. Again, you'll see the cost savings generated on the left. And then finally, by creating a really thoughtful, active layout and design, let's say you lose just one less person per year, you can see that the total cost savings per square foot are actually more than what we were paying in rent. So the one thing that I do want to point out is our density here in the bottom left hand of my screen. So you can see we're about 155 square feet per person. So during COVID times, when we're looking to create a little bit more space between employees and really be able to socially distance in the office, we're encouraging people to look at a square footage per employee closer to 200 square feet per person. So you'll see as I de-densify our space a little bit, the cost savings do go down, but there is the potential to create more space between employees and still recognize these cost savings. So I know I very quickly just threw a lot of numbers at you, but Ryan and Kimmery, do you think one of you could maybe speak to when we see this tool coming into play in the process and who it really resonates with?
Yeah, Casey, I'll take that one. I think what we're finding in the real estate process is the decision maker landscape is changing. In the past, it's been either the CFO or the head of general counsel or head of real estate if the company has that specific role. But now kind of moving forward, we have head of people, head of HR, potentially the CIO, head of technology and innovation. They're really driving this process in conjunction with the COO, CFO, CEO. And each part of this process kind of caters towards whatever decision maker is the ultimate point of contact. So what we found in this process is this really speaks to the CFO who's trying to build a more financial business case to support either making renovation or changes to their existing space or a potential relocation. So again, every part of this process will kind of speak to the different decision makers that we see at the table these days, but this one in particular to your head of your CFO or head of treasury.
Thanks, Kimmery. And to Kimmery's point that, the decision maker is changing across our different clients and your businesses. And so we are going to take a look now at the needs bucket, what we call a needs assessment, and think about things through maybe more of an HR lens. So after identifying some of those factors we needed to focus on to increase productivity and recruit and retain top talent and create just an overall workspace that people really wanted to come to every day, we had to think about our growth and the priorities of our team. So here we did this with our needs assessment. So you can see here, I've already plugged in our headcount and the lease expiration date. So we knew our new lease was starting in 2020. And for the purpose of today's conversation, we'll look at a 7-year lease term. The lease term here is really to serve to calculate growth over the term of your lease. This will change based on the individual needs of each organization, but we usually see them range anywhere from 5 to 10 years. We also wanted to calculate mobility. So even in the pre-COVID world, like when we were designing our space, we knew we needed to factor in for mobility. Given the nature of our business, many of our team members are often on site at client projects and just not in the office all day, every day. So we factored in for 20% mobility, or 20% of our team coming and going from the office on a daily basis. We also added a 2-to-1 employee to desk ratio for that 20%. So, and Kimmery mentioned earlier, we typically see that 70 to 80% of employees want to come back to the office between 2 and 3 days a week. So now we normally recommend companies look at a mobility percentage in the 20 to 30% range. We'll also take a look at growth over the term of our lease. So we can do this by a steady percent increase year over year, like the 5% that I'm showing here, or we can make changes directly at the headcount level. So we knew we were going to be adding an additional 5 people early in 2020. So we can make that change here and then return back to the steady 5%. On the right-hand side of my screen, you'll see we've quickly gotten to the number of seats needed, how they will be allocated, and the target square footage range. So now we'll talk about the actual space. We've broken space into 3 different buckets. You have traditional with more hard-walled offices, and progressive at the opposite end of the spectrum with a mostly open layout. We fall really into the moderate bucket, which is in between. It's a good mix of private work areas, but also open collaborative space. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see how the square footage changes in each of these different buckets. Now, this is just a baseline, but the great thing about what we did was we can really customize what that will look like for your team. So here is a high-level plan for what might go into a moderate space. But we knew that there were certain elements of our business that maybe was more traditional. We wanted to look at smaller offices, but have an increased number. We also wanted to take down the number of workstations and look at a smaller footprint, which we frequently see for companies who are looking to incorporate hoteling into their plan. Collaboration areas was also really important to our team. We wanted to have what you might think of as your traditional collaboration areas with multiple conference rooms fitting different size groups. So we had small rooms that could fit 2 people, 4 people, 6, all the way up to a large conference room. We also focused on open collaboration areas or soft seating. Now, Kimmery, as our office lead, I think you have a little bit more insight than I do into why we wanted such a mix of collaboration across the office and maybe how they're being used today. Do you think you can speak to that really briefly?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point. I think it was one of the main drivers when we designed our current space. The feedback we got from our employees, even though we were a mix of hardwall offices and open workstations, was we didn't have enough huddle, conference, phone rooms. And so that we made sure of our new space. And we had actually 13 different variety of type seating options across around 13,000 square feet, ranging all the way from a 1-person phone room with a stand-up desk to a huddle room with couches in it, to a huddle room with living room chairs, and also, a more traditional boardroom, if you will, with some banquette seating. So the goal coming into COVID, obviously no one knew we'd be here where we are today, was really to give the employees multiple different options and flexibility within the workspace. And I think the feedback that we're getting now and why we've been so successful in re-entering our workforce is the space feels like more like home And that's what everyone's enjoying about working from home right now, is that optionality and flexibility, and making it feel a little bit more informal. So again, we didn't know that was going to be such a big win, but we found that priority and that focus on those particular areas is serving us really well in this COVID environment.
Thanks, Kimmery. And as someone who typically sits out in the cubes, I definitely can say I appreciate the other kinds of furniture. I spend far less time at my desk in our new office and more time in conference rooms and huddle areas. And one part of the space that I can speak to that certainly is my favorite is our break room. When we moved into the new space, because we were really combining the culture of two different organizations into one space, we wanted to have a larger break room. In our last space, you may have seen in the before photos, it was really a traditional office kitchen with room for 2 tables. So in the pre-COVID world, of course, we really wanted to create a space where a good portion of our office could gather to have lunch together, have impromptu happy hours, and even use the space for large meetings. And during COVID, this has really proven to be an asset as well. We can have far fewer people in the space, but we can certainly sit down and have lunch with 1 or 2 other people, meet with a few, which has been great because it's what we were all really missing when we were working from home. The final thing I'll mention on this screen is the ability to add a custom specialty space. So in our space, that happened to be a wellness room, but that can be anything that is really specific to your business, and we can add that in and really figure out what size that needs to be and take a look at that. Next, we'll jump over and take a look at amenities. So here I've pre-selected a few that we knew based on employee surveys and focus groups were really important to our team. So we have central location. I'll talk a little bit more later about how we identified what that was for us. Conference rooms, cool build outs, collaborative meeting areas, access to natural light, and on-site retail and cafe options. These we can also prioritize based on what is most important to our team. And these are going to be amenities that are either in our space, in the building, or right in the surrounding area. The final step was to take a look at some of projects we had recently completed for clients around the globe. By looking through these photos, we could really imagine what was possible in our new space. And this could be great even if you're thinking about reimagining and redesigning your current space. It's just to serve as an inspiration of really what's possible. Finally, we end at the scorecard or summary of our conversation. We have our people factoring in for growth and mobility, our space with a high level build out, and amenities prioritized based on what is most important to our team. From here, we are going to jump over and look at how we bring this into the market. So you'll see on my screen, if you recognize the Beltline around downtown Raleigh, and what we did here was take what we learned in the base needs assessment, so square footage and geography, and identified 46 available options that would fit our base needs. From our employee surveys, we really understood what was important to our team as it related to amenities. Understanding that, as well as the timeline needed to build out new space and relocate, we were able to cut down that list from 46 options to 11. Now from here, what we would typically do is create a market survey or tour book, which some of you on this call may be familiar with. So this is just a book with high-level stats on each of the buildings, photos, and floor plans of the available spaces. But using JLL technology, we have a third option to virtually tour the market. Throughout COVID, we have been seeing an increase in the number of clients who want to tour space virtually. But Kimmery, Ryan, maybe one of you could share some of the benefits you've seen of touring virtually pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this one. As you can imagine, this tool immediately helps us to eliminate options that might not be a good fit for our clients. And it helps build continuity between, our client's leadership team, specifically if they obviously don't sit in the same location. As Casey mentioned, we came up with 46 options out of the gate. We narrowed it down to 10. It enables leadership to tour maybe 10 of those, 5 of those virtually and get that down to 3. And if they want to get in a car to see those 3, it's that's kind of the next step. But yeah, it's a huge time saver.
Thanks, Ryan. And now we can all tour virtually from our couches, but maybe one day back in the office again, you can tour from your office. So I'll jump into virtually touring the market. So you'll see on my screen here, we have an overview of Raleigh-Durham. I have the submarkets that make up Raleigh-Durham as well as major roads to help orient you. And here with the blue icon, that is JLL's previous location, which I'll start to zoom into now. You'll see this is the West Raleigh submarket. And we can take a look at some of the high-level statistics of any of these submarkets. So for example, the available inventory, how much square footage is under development, and what the direct asking average rate is. We can also break this down by Class A and Class B buildings. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further, and as I do, you'll start to see a number of red polygons popping up on my screen. Each of these represents a building in the market that we track. So as I zoom in here, we can click on one of these buildings, and each building will have a similar box pop up addressing the size of the building, the last time it was renovated, typical floor size, and average asking rate. We can also take a look at photos and floor plans of available space in the building. Now, as we use this tool to really think about our relocation, we want to think about some things that you might not think of as normal real estate drivers, but are things that are really important to your business. So I know I've mentioned, recruiting talent a few times. We wanted to think about who were we trying to hire and where were they? For the purpose of today's conversation, we've added in a few layers looking at where tech residents in the triangle typically live, as well as millennials. For our business, it's really important that we're close to our clients. So we wanted to think, what areas are really important to us to be close to. We took a look at how far we were to downtown Raleigh, the airport, and downtown Durham, knowing it was important that we could get to our clients' offices whenever needed. We also needed to think about our current team. We took a look at where everyone lived. So each gray dot that you see on the screen now represents the home address of one of our employees. We then found the weighted center, and from employee surveys understood that our team really didn't want their commutes to change drastically. So we knew we didn't want to be further away from this weighted center. Here you'll see we've layered in 15, 30, and 45-minute drive times, and we knew that we wouldn't want to be too far away from this location. So now it's time to really layer in that survey that I talked about before. Here you'll see the survey represented by these icons on the screen. As a reminder, the blue icon is our location at Wade Park. The yellow icons represent buildings that fall in a $33 to $37 a square foot range. Green options are above $38 a square foot, and red options fall below $32 a square foot. So very quickly, our team eliminated anything that was outside 15-minute drive of our weighted center. From there, we really evaluated some different metrics about the buildings. We looked at if there was room for us to growth and its surrounding areas. What did amenities look like for each of these buildings? And before we ever even left our office, we narrowed in on 5 options that we wanted to tour. Ultimately, we ended up at Crabtree Terrace, which is a new construction building at the corner of Glenwood Avenue and Creedmoor Road. And this checked a lot of boxes for us. It was within 15-minute drive of that weighted center. It was in close proximity to downtown Durham, the airport, and downtown Raleigh, and had the benefit of being surrounded by numerous amenities, all within walking distance and even within the building. Now, once we nailed down where we wanted to be and the boxes that it checked, we really need to talk about the space, what that's going to look like, and what it's going to cost. Taking the layout that was discussed in the needs assessment, we can drill into the specific costs. We start by setting the workplace style, moderate, and the construction cost, finish. So we can look at a budget-conscious build-out or something a little bit more high-end. These are local market construction costs. So while we did this in Raleigh, let's say you had an office in Austin that you wanted to do this for, we could develop a high-level budget using local market construction costs there. We'll also layer in deal costs and terms that we see here. So the average rental rate for the building, as well as the average tenant improvement dollars that are provided by the landlord. This is going to help us figure out a high level budget earlier on, as well as what the out-of-pocket cost may be to you. The goal here is really to build the budget earlier on in the process so that we can align key stakeholder expectations. We also can compare multiple scenarios. So if you want to think about different levels of mobility, different levels of finishes, or even see what the difference in construction costs would be if you wanted to add 5 additional offices, we can look at all of that side by side. So as I mentioned, we did end up at Crabtree Terrace, and here I can showing a virtual tour of our space with our conference rooms, a mixture of open workspace. You can see huddle rooms back here, as well as offices along the glass. So using this process that I walked through today, we're able to create a space that our employees were really excited to move into and also gave us room for flexibility and growth. We're also able to merge the cultures of 2 different organizations into one team. So following the onset of COVID, we've actually had the highest percentage of employees in our office returning and wanting to be there because of the positive environment that we've created. So I know we went through those kind of 4 buckets of technology pretty quickly, but I'm going to hand things back over to Kimmery to close us out, and then we will jump into the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Casey, for your guidance and all that. Really appreciate it. So like Casey mentioned, what we've walked you through today is just a part of the workplace reimagination process. And hopefully you got a sense of how we can tailor it to each individual client. Because again, what we found is one size does not fit all. Obviously, this is a highly customizable approach. Every screen you see can have data and input that's specific to your business. Obviously, it's been transformative in both when we went through it for our own office relocation, but with clients that we're working with today, given the uncertainty that everyone's navigating on kind of what does the future of work look like. Obviously, the environment we're in today is very fluid. And what we found is this technology platform and process has been extremely critical in kind of fostering that collaboration across leadership. Decision makers that are working from home, or like Ryan said, sitting in different offices, all while with the overarching goals of saving our clients time and money, mitigating risk, but also maximizing productivity and company culture. I think that's the one thing that we're also realizing right now is, there's a lot of talk about are we productive at home, which is great, but the next kind of evolution of that conversation is how are we bringing that company culture along and making sure our employees stay tied to the mission and the values of the organization to help that recruit and retain conversation. So you can see here are kind of a few of our after shots. Our break room cafe that Casey mentions on the top there, drastically improved. And then just an example of one of our major boardrooms, the before and after on the bottom there. So that kind of wraps up our programmed content. I want to thank NC Tech for having us. Obviously, you all remain a very integral part of the overall business ecosystem and community, especially here in Raleigh-Durham, as we look to continue to grow the innovation and add jobs here locally. And really to the audience, please reach out to any of us if you've got questions, feedback, or thoughts that we don't cover today. As we mentioned, we're on a technology journey and we kind of equate it to the iPhone. The current iPhone didn't look like iPhone 1 or 2. So we're still on this journey. It's not complete. We are continuously working to improve and evolve the process. Really from feedback driven by users like yourself. Ultimately, this was built for the user community, not us. And so we really want to make it sure it's useful to corporate clients out there looking to streamline and improve their real estate process to, again, drive that collaboration, culture, and productivity. So with that, I'll pause and see if there were any questions from the audience. Casey, I don't know if you fielded any in the Q&A box, but we'll give some time for those to see if they come in.
Yeah, so feel free, please, to pile on and ask anything in the Q&A box. I do have some I can, I'll throw your way, Ryan and Kimmery, and then let you guys tackle. So we have a question about addressing cleanliness and people needing files and drawer space to keep paperwork in at the office securely from other people if you're going to be hoteling or desk sharing. Any thoughts on how you're helping clients handle that now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question that I think a lot of people are going to try to navigate. You know, we're hearing some initial feedback is if companies are looking to reduce their footprint and not have assigned addresses, so kind of free address, I think we're starting to hear some feedback from employees of, to that point, Casey, where do I keep my personal things or my files? And so I think that really goes into the design process of, I think we might even need to reimagine kind of those areas. Traditionally, we'd have a big room with big file cabinets. Obviously, we've gone to a more paperless environment, but now we're going to have to find a way to house people's personal belongings and papers that they work on daily if a company or organization is still going to keep that kind of hoteling office moving forward. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that front.
Yeah, that's spot on. And a lot of our clients, their furniture vendors are coming up with creative solutions to solve for that type of issue, because that is something that is going to be probably likely the new norm.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, you know, some of the conversation we have, particularly in that customizing the space and the needs assessment, is thinking about things maybe in terms of neighborhoods. Not everyone has to work exactly the same. So even though people may sit in similar types of desks or in offices, maybe everybody works a little bit differently. So some people do still have to have assigned desks because they have to keep secure things or personal belongings. Other people only want to come in one day a week and they're fine to just have touchdown space. So there's definitely some flexibility there.
Yeah, and Casey, that brings up a good point. I mean, one conversation that we're hearing kind of across the country is the traditional real estate model has been, you know, if you're a managing director or an EVP, you get an office. And if you're an entry-level senior associate and below, you get a workstation. And the conversation we're starting to hear is more purpose-driven allocation of space. So really, you know, what's your function during the day? Are you on a phone all day long fielding calls? Maybe that type of person should be in an office regardless of their title, and vice versa. If somebody's not on the phone or is not in meetings as much, maybe an open environment would be more conducive to their role. Again, depending on not really taking a hard look at, well, you've been here 20 years and you've got a managing director title. So we'll kind of see how that pans out over time. But one of the conversations that a lot of people are having right now is they kind of readdress that purpose and function of workforce to drive what their design and floor plan looks like moving forward. Awesome.
All right.
Good.
Give another few minutes, see if anyone drops anything in the chat. But Emily, if there's anything you need to wrap up, please feel free.
Great. Thank you so much. And this is just part of our programming where our members are able to present some information. So we're really thankful to JLL for hosting this virtual workshop. And I'll be sending a follow-up email to all attendees. I know we had quite a few who last minute weren't able to join us. So yes, we will be providing the recording and contact information for our three panelists here today. So we will get that out to either later this afternoon or tomorrow. And I hope you'll have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much, everyone.
That was great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks everyone.